It's happening. Happy Friday Eve.
Yeah, happy Friday Eve. Not too much, just same stuff, different day. Really staying busy over here. How are things up in Minnesota?
It's going good, man. It's going good. Good weather. Walked to the bagel shop today for lunch, so not
That's
much.
really that's very wholesome of you. Nice walk to the bagel shop. Good for you.
No, it was good. I had a nice Western sandwich. I'm not even sure all that's in it. Egg, and different peppers. It was good. I'm going to a small town of 500 people tomorrow for the weekend for a chess tournament, so that'll be fun.
Well, yeah. Best of luck in the chess tournament. You'll have to let us know how it goes.
Well, definitely. Well, sorry, I lost my train of thought. But yeah, shout out to our sponsors, Black Box Logistics, where Will works, HD, where I recruit agents for, Trio, offshore staffing, Sales Dash, CRM. They are freight specific CRM. Josh is a good friend of both of us and the show. And then Taft's as well. If you want to, you have the banner for Taft's.
Yeah. And then just to hit on Trio real quick, they do all of our back end marketing stuff. So any of the cool graphics you see from the two dogs counter that Matt and I are posting, that's them. Black Box uses them for some nearshoring, and their people are awesome. Black Box is also a customer of Sales Dash, so I can't say enough good things about those two groups, as well as HD Black Box, and then of course our banner sponsor Taps there.
Yeah, we got a cool story from Taft's last night. So I had a trucking friend of mine who's looking to get out of his factoring deal, 15 trucks, and we sent a message in one of our group messages, and someone over at Taft's was like, "Hey, if you want him to call me, right now, I'd be happy to help him." That's at 8:30 at night on a Wednesday night. So it kind of speaks to their just communication in general. I think they're open till midnight, during the week for any issues. Just really great guys over there. If you're looking for a factoring company, go hit up Ryan or any of the other guys over there.
Yeah, 100%. Great group to work with. So staying true to the theme for this week, it's TMS heavy. So today we've got Danielle Chaffin with Revenova. She's got a pretty interesting background and has a cool story for how she got into freight. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and bring Danielle to the stage. Danielle, how are you?
Hi, guys. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Happy Friday Eve or happy Thursday.
Yeah, I'm actually off tomorrow. So it's a Friday for me.
There you go. Nice.
Yeah.
Is the day going okay? I was going to say, I think I was scrolling through Twitter earlier and I read you're going to need a lot of coffee today. Up reading.
Yeah. So last night I went to bed and then I woke up around midnight, I think. And it was, my brain would not shut off from the book that I had left off. There was, I don't know, a couple hours left in reading. And yeah, I couldn't go back to sleep until I finished the book, which was at 1 or 2 this morning.
Must have been a good book.
Yeah, so sad. It had to be a good book.
It was interesting.
Like that.
What'd you say?
I said I wish I would find a book that would keep me up like that. Try to go to sleep, and they're just like, man, I just really want to go finish it. We'll have to get some recommendations from you. Shout out to Renz. Thanks for tuning in. That's one of the Trio guys. He does all the branding and all that good stuff, the graphics. So Danielle, we usually start off with asking people how they got into the industry, and I'll let you tell it, but you have a pretty cool story, right?
Yeah, it is a little bit different. It's a mix of a lot of things. I feel like most people in this industry, it's one of two. You either fall into it by accident or you grow up in it. And I, for lack of better words, did both. I grew up, my father and grandfather, both truck drivers, had their own authority. My grandfather ended up leasing to, I don't know, a bunch of different companies. He was a flatbed driver. He said he did dry van for a while, but flatbed, there's obviously more money there. My father drove over the road. He was a cattle bull hauler up until I was 3. So grew up in it. When I was 3, I don't remember this, but my dad called home from a truck stop somewhere, and I talked to him on the phone and I asked him when he was coming home because I missed him, and he said it broke his heart. And he came home, Didn't go back over the road, started driving more of a regional routes, regional stuff. And he's been doing that since I was 3-ish. He still drives today. He's a manager executive at a company out of Southern Illinois. He was brought on to build out their Southeast division. And when he doesn't have enough drivers, he jumps in the truck today. So I grew up in it, and then I ran from it. I told my dad and my grandpa that I would never be in this industry. I regret that I didn't, or I regret that I took for granted what they did as truck drivers. Growing up, it wasn't, I mean, today it's not a glamorous job. It's not something super exciting that a kid gets excited. Oh, I want to be a truck driver when I grew up. So I didn't. I took that for granted. Ran from it, went into social work, and I love solving complex problems. I love helping people get to solutions. So I found social work. I realized that that was really great for me until it wasn't. And how did I get into freight brokerage? Oh yeah. My best friend, Tori, was working as a broker at RNL. They have an office in Nashville. And she showed me how much money she was making. I literally had no idea what she was doing besides, I forgot what her title even was. It was not anything close to freight broker. And I applied for a job as an account manager with BNSF Logistics. I interviewed, I got the position, and that's where I fell back into the industry.
How did you make the transition from being a broker to TMS? Because Revenova's, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but Revenova's been where you've been at the majority of your career in brokerage, right?
Yep, absolutely. So the childhood, and then I ran from it, and then I was a freight broker. My book of business at BNSF was heavy produce. I was a single mom at the time with a 1.5, 2-year-old, getting calls at 4 and 5 in the morning, wanting to know where a truck is when I just had a toddler waking me up like an hour before. It was really, really difficult for me. I loved what I did. I learned a lot. I had to leave. So I went back into social work, working with young mothers with newborns and helping them figure out how to be a mom. And one day I was working from home doing something. This is way pre-COVID, but I was working from home. And I remember my regional manager from BNSF, Jason Skorcheski, he messaged me on LinkedIn. And he said something along the lines of, you may not be looking for a position, but I have something you might be interested in, and sends me a job description from Revenova for a project manager. And I read through it and I was like, I mean, I'm open to anything. So that's how I got back. I flew up to Chicago. Well, I talked to Charles, our CEO, on the phone for like a preliminary interview. Then I flew up to Chicago, interviewed with everyone at the company at the time. And yeah, then they offered me a job for actually a training manager, not a project manager, which was definitely my wheelhouse. And I ran with that. And I've been here since.
We got
a cool story.
We're in Hatfield tuned in. He says cattle hauler. Hell yeah. That's a little bit different. Those guys don't have to abide by hours, right? They can just, when you have livestock.
I don't know now, to be honest. My dad does bulk, like fly ash and cement stuff now. So I don't know about it now.
I don't know much about it either. And then Scott says, thanks, Scott. Thank God he reached out. No, very cool. Yeah, the reefer broker game's a little bit different. So Black Box, my company, we mainly specialize in open deck, but we do have a few reefer guys, and that's a thing that Matt often jokes with me about with the reefer loads. I won't touch it. The first load I ever moved was a reefer load. My second day, and it was 3 picks in the United States, 2 picks in Canada, and it was the first and only reefer load I moved, and the customer never wanted to talk to me again. I mean, I messed it all up, right? It was awful. After that load, I went in, like 2 days later, I was like, I don't know if this is for me, guys. The whole reefer thing. And then Clay, thanks for tuning in. He says, great story.
Thanks, Clay.
Yeah, so you have it's pretty interesting, right? So you come from this like long line of freight drivers, trucking transportation. You say, I'm never going to do that, right? Well, I guess never say never, right? You go into social work, and then, I mean, I would assume that the work through that is pretty transferable to what you do now. Can you talk a little bit about that and what you do and how it plays a part in today for you?
Absolutely. I went to Troy University. Actually, I went to Alabama for quite some time, but they didn't have any online programs. So I had to switch to Troy because I was traveling. I have my undergrad in psychology, and then I got my master's in social work. So I practiced individual therapy for a short stint of time, again, before I got back into freight and logistics. The modalities I learned in school to solve problems, to get people to not necessarily want to do things in a manipulative manner, but to learn how to motivate people and learn what they like, what they don't like, without asking those explicit yes, no questions. Those are skills that every salesperson should be able to do if they haven't learned it like explicitly through a sales program, because I've looked at some of them and it's literally the same thing that I paid for a master's degree in, just talking to a different audience. And the biggest things are like active listening and actually listening to someone to respond, or listen to someone to hear them, not listening just to respond to them.
Yeah, so that actually, I'm going to grab it real quick. Somebody recommended that I read this. You're not listening. It talks
a
lot about that. And I completely agree with you. We've got Alan tuned in. We appreciate you listening. He says, looking to learn a lot, just newbie in this industry, just a year of experience.
Welcome, Alan.
How did it go starting off? So, by the way, congrats on the promotion. I think I saw you got promoted to solutions engineer now.
I got a senior
Solutions engineer.
Yeah.
So yeah, it looks like you kind of, progressed your way. How was it, at first, going from like the brokerage side, to the TMS? Was it, kind of full cycle, or you had a lot of training on the TMS, or just kind of, dove into it of, hey, let's prospect just like we're prospecting shippers, prospect brokerages, and, start calling? How did it kind of, go from the beginning?
Yeah, I remember sitting in my interview in Chicago, and our CTO, Dave Craigmile, I think it was just him and I at the time. They like cycled in so I could interview with literally every single person at the company, which was not a lot at the time. We were only 5 years old then. Yeah, 5 years old. And I told him, I have no technical experience. I do not know. I don't know what I don't know. And I remember him looking at me and saying, I can teach you the technical piece. We need the industry experience. And he was 100% right. While I don't have a technical background, I'm very much a hands-on learner. I love learning. I love learning from my mistakes and experience. So I was very good at just being able to pick up and learn like the technical aspects. As far as training, that's why I was brought into Revenova. While I was there for a couple of days doing my initial interview, we were able to identify a gap between building this TMS, this product, and being able to give it to our customers and them know how to use it. There wasn't really the training. There was some technical documentation that the developers would create as they were creating the product or the feature, but we just didn't have anything to give to the customers on the how do I use this and why am I using it this way. So I came in, I learned my technical skills backwards. I started out using our demo org as if I was a freight broker. I went in and I started, for lack of better words, clicking around and finding out. I was building loads. I was booking carriers. All of this is fictitious. None of it is real, but I just played freight broker for the first couple of months. I sat in on sales calls, listening to the conversations, watching the demos on how the sales guys at the time were showing off our product. Yeah.
That makes sense. So I don't know, at least the way I see it, oftentimes with what you're describing, right? You've got maybe or possibly had this software, right, that's awesome, but then if it's not, if we can't really convey how to use it, I've experienced it with a few different providers where the software is great, right? Like it can do everything I want. The issue is I just don't know how to do it right. And then like I'm asking my rep, and then they don't know how to do it. Or so does anybody like, yeah, it can do anything, but nobody knows how to do it. So can it really do it right? And then maybe the disconnect with some tech people coming into freight and then developing this stuff without actually kind of knowing the operations right or how things work. So when you're talking about, I'm booking these fictitious carriers, booking these loads, right? Like actually going through it and seeing what it works, like the workflow itself. I mean, I got to think that that's invaluable, right? When you're going through product development, right? How does it look? Is it practical, right? Does it make sense? Does
Yeah.
it?
Does what we're building actually work on the floor?
Yeah.
I would say that's probably one of well, I'm not a developer. I'm also not on the product team. But from my perspective, creating technology for a non-tech industry is probably the biggest hurdle, to make sure that the tech and what we're developing actually matches what people are doing on the floor.
Yeah. And then even, I mean, a step past that, right? If I'm used to TMS-A, right? And then Revenova wants me to swap to TMS-B, if it's just a huge disconnect or jump where it's a lot more complicated, it's almost old sound. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? So like we actually had Michael from 3PL on yesterday, and he said
I watched it.
Did you? Okay, so you probably heard him. He said he called somebody, and the guy said, "Man, even if you were 50% of what I'm paying right now, and we're much more efficient, like I wouldn't swap purely because I have 500 workers on TMS-A, right? So just the shift in itself." So yeah, I mean that's what I look for that often, right? If I'm looking at software, is how easy is it going to be for me to implement it? So I mean that's a big change. And it's so much data, and it's the operating system everybody's working in day to day, right? So if it's a lot of people aren't very tech forward, right? So I mean, getting somebody up on Outlook and setting an email signature can be a hurdle sometimes, right? So then when you're tasked with a TMS and all this functionality, we're like, yeah, it's great if I see it or we're able to operate it, but can we get our people on it and functional with it?
Absolutely.
We've got a couple comments here. One from Alan. Danielle, I hope you do cold calls. Just wanted insight on how you've been tackling cold calls. Share any pointers. Do you have any pointers on cold calls?
No, I don't. So my role with the sales engineer, I don't do cold calls. Let me back up several bullet points. I skipped too far ahead. I am an extreme introvert. I am not one to approach someone that I don't know and just start talking or like introduce myself. And then I don't like small talk either. So that's a struggle as far as sales go. If I'm talking about something that I have knowledge of or that I'm interested in, I can talk to you all day. But just like that basic calling someone, I struggled with that as a freight broker. Once I got that relationship started, I'm very good at nurturing and continuing the relationship. That first piece.
Maybe a good question is, what is kind of like the day-to-day of because there's different titles in freight tech you see, whether it's TMS companies, automation companies. So is like a solutions engineer, is that kind of the point where if you guys already have a customer, you're kind of, in charge of, different ways that might help them and different things they can add to the TMS, or what kind of goes into the role of a, solutions engineer for a TMS company?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm the first one at Revenova. So actually every role that I've been in, I've been the first. So we just kind of build it out and then go on. Cool. Yeah, it is fun. It's a lot of work, a lot of learning, but we get it done. For this like sales solutions engineer, my, I guess like main priority, main focus is once our sales team gets past that first discovery call, starts getting more requirements, more information, pain points, what they like, what they don't like about their current TMS, what they like, don't like, or have heard about Revenova, that first call. Then I can come in on the next call or calls following and then do a more what I consider a strategic demo. if they send us examples of their loads, if they send us examples of how their processes work today, then I can take that and build it out. I would like create the loads and run their routes in my sales demo org. And I get to show that or demo that back to them and explain the process as we go and how it works in Revenova. And if there's more technical people on those calls, I explain the what as well.
We got another question that kind of feeds off of that. Aaron, again, he says, being able to bridge that tech gap is huge. Great point on being intentional on what you're developing, translating to the floor itself. Continued, what are some ways you've discovered work best to bridge that? Danielle, you mentioned modalities earlier. Any examples of how you've been able to implement that?
Aaron with all the questions.
So I guess I can kind of feed off of that. So when you're talking about, so they're past the discovery call, right? And they're giving you kind of examples, right? So you're able to, I guess a more specific question be, so Revenova itself, are you able to kind of build out? So I'd imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, you most likely have kind of like your baseline TMS Revenova, but then past that, can you kind of customize to an extent based off of their operations, right? So there's some brokerages that might not need, add on A, B, C. So when it comes into your hands, you're probably not going to present that by looking at their operations. So you're going to maybe customize the pitch, so to speak. I wouldn't really call it a pitch, but with what you're doing with them, does that make sense?
Absolutely. With Revenova, so we're built on the Salesforce platform, which gives us a huge advantage.
Yeah, that's neat.
Yes, it is very cool. I learned the Salesforce platform far too late into my Revenova journey. If I would have started learning Salesforce first, I would have been better off.
There's a lot of variations, and then I don't need to go to it. It's just a lot. Salesforce. I'm not a tech guy though. So
that's a cool part about, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Danielle, but I believe you guys have a product too, because I always thought, I was like, well, it must be difficult, because if like I liked Salesforce, I used it before I got into brokerage and another sales job, but I also know some people who do not like Salesforce.
So I like Sales CRM. Shout out Josh Lyles, sponsor.
But I always thought it would be kind of difficult, because it's like you could have a great product, but if someone doesn't like Salesforce or vice versa. But someone was telling me recently that you guys have a product separate from Salesforce, or if am I understanding that correctly, or not separate from it, but I forget, two different products or something of that nature, or maybe I misheard or misunderstood them.
There are a lot of misconceptions and confusion sometimes. Revenova is built on the Salesforce platform. Revenova does not exist without Salesforce. So we certainly don't have a separate product. However, when we get into those conversations of, I've used Salesforce before, I don't like it, typically it's because the customer, the person has only used Salesforce for logging activity and task for sales, and it's been a very basic build out of that org maybe. So getting through the screens, getting through what they have to enter takes time and a lot of clicks. We show them Revenova, and then they realize that while this is the same, it is totally better and a different twist on what they had before.
So I should add on to me saying I don't like Salesforce. It's really user error, right? Because I have to build it. We build it out, right? We didn't do a good job building it out. And then we're really busy. So we're just like, man, Salesforce sucks. But really, it's probably an us issue, right? So if you guys are built on Salesforce, I would imagine, are the customers' CRM kind of built into the TMS? Are they connected? Do they have Salesforce features through Revenova?
Some of our customers do. Some of them don't necessarily use like the leads or opportunities. And the reason is because in logistics, we don't necessarily look at leads and opportunities. We look at loads, origin, destination. What are we hauling? How much? And that's what we need to capture to keep up with our prospects on the customer side and the carrier side. So we can look at a load or a shipment in Revenova. You can build it under a prospect account or someone that you're trying to win that first load from. And you could have 1 to 15 of those prospect loads before you ever win that first load.
So I love that. So yeah, an issue that I've run into in the past and still somewhat do is kind of just streamlining, right? Like having everything in one place, right? So
I hate that word.
Yeah.
I tweeted streamline something earlier.
Streamline's one of my favorite buzzwords as of late. It's been thrown into conversations all the time. But no, in all jokes aside, like having to toggle different programs, right? So for me, at least when I look at like my brokers on the floor, like I want to make it as simple and practical as I can, right? And if we don't have any way to log our quotes, or if we do and it's kind of tough to get there and they're busy, like we're going to lose that. And data is so valuable, right? Your data, I mean, which I would imagine that you guys probably have some really cool analytic features. Exploit. I can only imagine being with Salesforce and like what it is. But again, yeah, if my rep's quoting something in their Outlook, right, and they don't have anywhere to log it in the CRM or Ajax, which Sales Dash does, so we can log it there now. Thanks, Josh. But it gets lost, right? And then they're quoting again. They don't have that information to kind of look at to move forward, right? Because all that information is going to be valuable in the future conversations or pricing, right? Like it's going to tell me like if I was high, low, or I mean, it's valuable information, right? If we just lose it, then it's kind of wasted time, which leads to wasted opportunity, and you're missing out on revenue.
Absolutely. And it kind of goes back, Aaron asked the question about modalities and examples of how I've been able to implement or use that in my Revenova logistics tech role. Yeah, there we go. When I was a therapist, my favorite modality, which I didn't use any of them by the textbook, I would mix them, but my favorite was solution focused. Yes, we'll address the past. Yes, we'll address where you've been and how you got here, but we're moving forward. We're going to set goals. We're going to do something to get to the next step. When I look at my sales demo org, when I talk to our customers, especially on the CRM piece, whether it's for customer or it's for carrier, I want to have as much information about that customer, about that shipping and receiving location, about that carrier as humanly possible so I can serve them in the best way possible. If there's turnover at one of my customers, I don't want to have to go back and rely on that new person to give me everything I need to get caught up and to figure out what they need. I should be able to provide that new person with value and with service to help them move into their new role, to help them make sure that their freight is going out, and to make sure I'm serving them. So,
yeah, I love that. I think that that's applicable to just like that kind of mindset, being solution based, right? And then what you're referring to, like having the information to draw off of. We've got a comment from Zachary. It's just a muscle flexing emotion. We appreciate you tuning in. I don't know what that's in reference to, but shout out you.
I think you guys brought up a good point too, kind of just how we were talking about, Salesforce. Like I had a great experience with Salesforce. I worked at a, 1,000-person organization that had, experience building out Salesforce, and it was very simple to me. I liked it. This was prior to logistics, but I think you brought up a great point about it's how the company does too. And I think you hear that whether in automation, pricing, TMS, you could have an absolutely, great product, but if the customer isn't utilizing it right, or, doing it, it kind of becomes, useless, or then they think that XYZ is bad or doesn't work, when in reality it could have just been a user error the whole time. Not saying yours was a user error, Will, but
it was a user error.
But is that a challenging part of your role too, of making sure or try to explain to different customers and clients like how to best utilize some of these things for their organization, or how does that kind of process go post sales, if you've had a customer for a year or two to kind of see their growth?
Yeah, it's actually one of my favorite parts of this job, and actually being a parent also, is being able to observe or see someone like that light bulb go off, or something clicks, a concept, something new. So while I was doing all of the training for Revenova, I would teach our customers, teach those super users how to use Revenova, how to do things at the platform level, build flows, build automation, change page layouts. When they could come back and say that they can now do that on their own and they don't rely on Revenova to do that for them, whether it's, again, building flows and automation, changing page layouts for their users, building out custom reports and dashboards. once they grasp those concepts, it is really, really cool to see. The platform or Salesforce provides free training via Trailhead. So they have, I don't know how much money they put into their research and training and development, but it has to be a lot. They have hundreds of training modules showing you how to do things at the platform level. We can take, I would say 35% of that and pull it and apply it to the Revenova module, where it's, like I said, it's building flows, or the automation, Salesforce calls them flows, changing page layouts, creating custom reports and dashboards. Revenova utilizes field sets as well, which means that we can change not all of our pages, a lot of our pages, a lot of sections throughout the TMS, throughout that load lifecycle, based on the mode. So when you select a mode, your page is going to look different, like truckload versus refrigerated freight, because you need to collect different information, different data.
100%. That all makes sense. We got a comment from Eric Tate. Says it's that psychological background right there, understanding their perspective and being able to help them further understand the value. So kind of what you're talking about is, so we're talking about Salesforce. It's like, yeah, it's user error. At the same time, I think it's so important to have the people with the software team that kind of walk you through it, right? Like what you're describing. We were talking about earlier. It's, yeah, the software might be great, right? But if I don't know how to use it and nobody's there to help me use it, or you sell me the software and then every time I call, I'm getting billed for it, it's like, I don't want to work with you anymore. Like it's ridiculous. And so I think that maybe some companies, I don't want to say put service to the side, right? But maybe they get hyper focused on developing and creating the software. So they're rotating through these service reps, and then they don't really see the customer retention or loyalty, right? Because yeah, man, your upgrades are fantastic, but I don't know how to use them. And if I ask you to show me how to use them, you're going to build me an arm and a leg. Or I could go to a friendly company where they're going to like walk me through it, hopefully get me to that point where the light bulb goes off and I'm able to, navigate their platform, right? So I don't know, maybe I've just had some bad experiences with software companies, but I mean, that's the thing out there, right? So I think it's cool to hear you kind of talk about that and saying that's one of your favorite parts of the job, and even being a parent is getting people to that point where the light bulb goes off.
Do you have any cool success stories, since you've obviously been at Revenova for a while, and obviously you probably can't say their names, but any cool stories of a company that maybe you started working with 5-6 years ago at the $10 million mark with 5 employees, and now you get to see 100 employees and I don't know, whatever X amount, or just any cool cool stories like that throughout the years?
It is interesting, and one thing that is unique about Revenova is because all of our customers have their own Salesforce org, we don't have access to their data. So unless they've created a white paper or given us something, which I haven't seen one, I don't know.
That's cool.
Attractive
that you guys don't have access to their data.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you sign a software agreement. It's like, yeah, your data is protected, but still, I mean, there's concerns, right? So I don't know. I feel like that would be almost maybe not a main selling point, but that would be attractive to a lot of people, especially maybe some more paranoid types. We don't have access to your data.
Yeah.
I think people would like that.
Yeah, it is certainly something that we touch on during the sales cycle. It is a huge priority for some prospects and customers that we talk to, and others, it's something that honestly they don't even think about until it's probably too late. But
yeah. We got another comment from Aaron. Aaron, we appreciate you tuning in. He says 100 emoji. Tech companies have let service fall to the wayside. Well, it's refreshing to hear you talk about Revenova's approach. It sounds like you guys do value service and walking people through the lifeline, right? Like maybe just in all sales, kind of, I think that people as a whole or in general are maybe hyper focused on the sell, right? But maybe not, which you touched on, right? Nurturing the relationship and creating a customer, right? As opposed to a sell, like especially in brokerage, right? Somebody moves a load and they're like, oh, I got this new customer. But then they only get like one load, and it's like, you really didn't, you just moved a load. You didn't create a customer. And I think that that's very valuable to anybody tuning in, at least from my perspective, is nurturing relationships, building them. So that's really good.
I think a couple of success stories that I just thought about were recently I worked on 2 different like projects for customers. One of them was trying to identify those one and done carriers and what lanes those carriers were being booked on, and trying to like nurture that relationship with the carriers. So because that data is in Revenova and because we can pull those custom reports and easily do it and quickly do it, that was a quick win for the customer to be able to say, hey, here's our, I don't know how many it was. Here's our 35 carriers that we've only booked once on this lane. And I think the lane was maybe like a handful of lanes. It was the same for most of it, which was interesting.
It's pretty cool. You can, all the technologies, kind of, it's getting kind of, it's pretty cool out there. You brought up something too earlier I want to touch on because you're seeing it on LinkedIn, talked about a lot in the tech community. We asked Michael about it yesterday, and I noticed you mentioned automation, not AI, when you were talking earlier. What's kind of your thoughts on this automation versus, AI in the present and kind of the future in the, in the TMS space? It seems to be a hot topic, whether it's among pricing, tech providers, TMS providers. You see it, at least I feel like, once or twice a week being debated.
Of course. It's certainly more of a buzzword right now than it is practical application of AI. I believe I heard Michael say yesterday, and I would agree with him, that I don't know how much like real AI, if there are some, it's very limited, that we have in the logistics space right now. Real legitimate AI models versus machine learning. Again, because we're on the Salesforce platform, I know that Salesforce is doing a lot of work in the AI space, and we're going to be able to utilize that and take advantage of that very soon. I haven't dug deep into it yet, again, because all we have right now is machine learning and automation. I can give you any kind of prediction from a customer's org. If you want to see what your rates should be based on this time last year, we can get that very quickly. That's not AI. That's me looking at historical data and getting it from a specific period based on these parameters and maybe adding a little percentage on it for you.
Yeah, it seems like just the buzzword AI, a lot of people are just kind of throwing it on stuff because it is a buzzword and it's hot, right? It's, I don't want to say it's like what's cool, but people hear AI and they're like, oh, AI, it's really cool. So it's like we leverage a lot of automation. We don't do any AI, and I'm kind of with you, right? I think AI is interesting, neat. I think that there eventually will be a lot of use case for it, but in practicality, like true AI, I don't think anybody's, there are maybe like some companies that are doing a little bit with it, but for the most part, you don't really see a lot of AI.
Mm-hmm. I think, I guess really the only tool that I have used and I really like is like a note taking, or one that comes in on the meeting. What was it called? Read AI. I only used it a few times, but it was really cool.
I use Fireflies and like it.
Is it similar to Read AI?
Yeah, I'm sure that they do the similar things, if not the same thing.
Yeah, but it would like create a summary or like minutes for the meeting, which I typically do when I'm in meetings, so I could pay closer attention to what was being said versus listening and taking notes.
Yeah, or you can just, I'm just going to speak for myself. If I'm in a meeting where I'm not actively participating and have other stuff going on, I only have so much capacity, right, mentally. So I've got other stuff going on. I can kind of tune out, and if I missed part of the meeting, right, like it's going to recap it for me. So that's nice, and especially like some meetings. I don't know. I'm a firm believer that a lot of times there's a lot of meetings where maybe not everybody needs to be in the meeting, right? But for me to not be in the meeting might be seen as, I don't know, just disrespectful almost. Like I'll be in the meeting, but it's like I don't really need to be here. But I can get the recap right. I know what happened, but I don't need to block off an hour for something that I'm not really a part of, right? So I'm a big fan of the note taker apps as well. Trio put me on them, one of our sponsors, Fireflies, to join a meeting with them. I was like, what's going on here? And then downloaded it, loved it, been using it ever since.
What's it called? Fireflies?
Yeah, Fireflies AI.
Pretty cool. I've never used one of those. Maybe I'll have to.
I'll send you some recaps from some meetings that you've been in where you can kind of see what it's doing. But yeah, it's pretty neat stuff. Some people don't like them though. You'll join a meeting with a lawyer and he's like, we got to remove it. some people get a little iffy about the note taker apps. Or I've seen some posts, right, where so at least with Fireflies, you can edit where it sends the recaps, and some people will do it to everybody, right? And then I've seen some people where they've been in a meeting with the note taker, they send a recap, and then they kind of like went on LinkedIn, kind of shit on it. They're like, this note taker said I had like this to do. Like, didn't even make any sense. But personally, I'm a fan. Here we go. JJ, he's the one I got Fireflies from. Fireflies is fire. It is indeed.
That's interesting, though, about the AI aspect, too, with Salesforce. I would think that would probably give you guys an edge just because Salesforce is such a massive company. So their research and the amount of money invested they have into AI is going to be a lot more than some, this is an opinion of mine, but a lot more than some entry level, startup, VC funded, freight tech company. Salesforce, obviously, I don't know this, but I imagine they have a massive team working on AI and a lot of money involved in it.
I haven't looked into the financials. I'm sure it is a lot. One of the things that I have looked into, because I do use it during our sales cycle, is just the security and data privacy piece of Salesforce. And I know that they spend $1.8 billion a year on security and data privacy. So we get where I'm going, and I lost my train of thought, is yes, it's going to be the same concept for Revenova with the AI piece of Salesforce as it is with the security and data privacy. That's not something that necessarily we have to focus on or prioritize, because Salesforce provides that for us. And our customers get to leverage Salesforce data and privacy, data privacy and security. There we go.
But that's I would think or imagine, at least if I wanted to kind of dabble with AI, that's somebody that I'd want to dabble with, because with all the buzz and noise, there's so many people trying to. It's almost like with the I don't know, man, all these trends, right? So everybody tries to get into it, right? So you probably have a lot of people that aren't truly capable of developing stuff that is practical, but you got to think a company like Salesforce has the tools, resources, and people to where somebody's going to develop something with some good use case. Those are the people, as opposed to the random DM from the guy starting the AI with no real tech background selling you on a pipe dream. We got a couple comments here. Eric Tate, he says, sounds like something AI would say. I don't know what that is in reference to. It could have been quite a few things. And then we got a question.
That's a good question.
Yeah, we got a question from Rob with TAFs. He says, what is the ideal size truck count or load count that you target for both brokers and carriers to use Revenova?
We never asked that. Is Revenova for carriers and for brokers and shippers, or all three, or one or the other? We forgot to ask that.
Any combination of the three: brokers, 3PLs, shippers, carriers, trucking companies, again, or a combination. We launched a fleet operations project a few months ago, and so now we have on the same platform within the same app or package, if you will, we have the fleet operation side and also the brokerage. So same data, same org, under the same umbrella, all in one place. As far as truck count or load count, I don't know. We have customers that have 3 to 4 users. We have customers that have hundreds of users. So I know user counts. I don't, again, necessarily know the data.
So it sounds like you guys are pretty adaptable. You can work with small, medium, and large. So it's not really hey, we only work with, huge big box brokers. That maybe you guys can work with the smaller brokerages and have the capabilities to work with large brokerages as well.
Absolutely.
Well, that must mean it's a pretty cost effective if you have, a company starting with 4 users, because I know that's something I've heard. Sometimes it can be hard for smaller companies to get going on a TMS right away, because they might not have the profit coming in or the revenue to be able to afford a better TMS. They have to start at a less than ideal TMS, at least less than ideal for long-term growth, maybe. But it sounds like Revenova is a platform that makes it kind of affordable for, if you have customers with 4 users to kind of start towards the beginning.
Yeah, I usually stay out of the pricing conversations. There's only so much I can hold in my brain, so much I have capacity for. So I try to stay more technical for my demonstrations. One of the conversations that I have with our prospects more often than not is if they are between two TMS, one that they're only going to use for a year versus go ahead and go with Revenova. I will always tell you, I'm going to step out of my employment at Revenova and I'm going to talk to you as if I'm your friend or consultant. You're going to be better off going ahead and going with Revenova rather than adapting to this TMS for the next 12 months and then coming back to us and moving your data, moving your processes, and going through another change management phase of your business.
That's a great point. How long is that process too? I mean, with somebody switching TMSs, how long of a process is it to get up and going and do the training, get all your, like let's say someone's listening today, hey, I want to do a new TMS, but I'm worried about how long it's going to take for my reps to get up on and going on it.
Of course, certainly depends on the head count of the brokerage and the data. Our standard implementation is 12 weeks. Again, because of size, because of people, things happening, it can certainly go longer than 12 weeks, but that standard is set at 12 weeks.
That's the ideal way to do it. So you wouldn't want, I mean, just imagining, okay, say we're on TMS A and everybody comes into the office on Tuesday morning and all of a sudden it's like, hey guys, we're on TMS B, figure it out. I feel like it needs to be kind of, lengthy. You need to get people trained up before you can really get them operating in it. Otherwise you're going to face, like some serious quality control issues. And then, yeah, Matt, kind of what you're talking about. Some people still cowboy it with like the paper packets and like operating like PDF rate cons. When I was
100%.
Dispatching, I don't know. I guess I just didn't think about it, right? I was still somewhat, I still am, but still early in the industry. And I remember like getting my first one and I was like, is this, I don't know. I thought it was some kind of scam. I was just like, this doesn't look right. I'm like looking at my partners. I'm like, should we run the load? But they were legit. It was just like they typed out the rate con like a word, converted it to PDF and sent it. And they have paper packets and all that. I mean, software is expensive. It really and truly is. So for a brokerage, that's one of the, like the largest overhead is the software. But I mean, I think you got to have it right at a certain point. You can only be so efficient sending out your, like your paper packets or like typing out your rate cons. It was crazy to me to think that people are doing that, but I guess
I have seen some really phenomenal Excel or like Google Sheet TMSs.
Yeah. I always wish that I was one of those people that was just an Excel wizard. Start adding the formulas, clicking through everything.
I like missed that era of, I don't know, wasn't in my generation, I think.
Yeah, I tried to take a Excel class and like 30 minutes in, I just got frustrated. I was like, I'm just not doing this. It's just too much. So that speaks to like my experience with Salesforce. Maybe it's me, maybe it's not the software.
Oh, it's well, I guess one other thing, and then we'll see if anyone else has any questions. But I think it's kind of interesting since you guys are selling to. I'm just kind of curious how this goes. But do you guys take more of a different approach? I guess I'm just kind of thinking of like, and this too because you're on X and LinkedIn, but X is a lot more truck drivers, for example, and carriers, and LinkedIn's a lot more brokers, maybe more tech people. But I imagine like how you communicate to a 10 truck organization in, I don't know, Georgia is going to be a lot different than you're going to sometimes have to communicate the software to a 100-person brokerage in Chicago. Like maybe I guess kind of talk about that, but do you have to kind of change your approaches just based on who you're talking to and kind of, well, I guess that's a dumb question. Of course, every client's going to be different, but I mean, just selling to different industries. I don't know if you want to just touch on that at all.
Absolutely a different conversation. I will say 90% of the conversations I have and the differences, it's always different. On the trucking side, on the carrier side, it has to be as simple and as like easy to get a load or an order to a truck and dispatch that truck as possible. The closest we could mimic an Excel sheet, that's what we tried to do because it has to be simple. They don't necessarily care about well, I shouldn't say they as a whole. Most of what I've seen in my experience, my professional opinion, the AI, the like futuristic tech, it's not a priority, and it's certainly not like a focal point of conversation. Versus on the freight brokerage side, we want all the tech and as quick as possible. It's just not the same on the trucking side. The way we built out our fleet operations product. Wow, words. Our fleet operations product is a list of your available trucks. You can filter them by a certain region or a certain like pickup location, like warehouse. And then right below that, you have a list of loads or orders that need to be assigned, or a trip that needs to be planned, like a route. And those need to be dispatched. You select your truck and your driver. You select the load or orders, multiple. You put them in a trip plan. You dispatch your truck. It's, I don't know, 5 clicks maybe. Whereas on the brokerage side, we want automation. We want rates to come in. We need to look at spot market rates. We need to look at a lot of other things.
So when you talk about looking at spot market rates, are you guys able to integrate with certain benchmarks? Like, when you say look at spot rates, would I be able to kind of like pull up a benchmark through like maybe like DAT RateMate through your software without having to check out?
We have DAT, Truck Stop, Trucker Tools, FreightWave Sonar. Green Screens has a custom component that they have put in many of our mutual customers. And then we also have Lane IQ Network, which is a Revenova like exclusive customer rating database where customers opt in to send in rates, and then we anonymize those rates, clean the data, and push it back to the customer. And then we put all of that data in one place, or like one tool, so they can see it, where the data is coming from, or the data source, and then they can see the average rate for that lane, that mode, or equipment type.
Yeah, so things like that. There are a bunch of companies that don't even do those integrations. So something, it's like just simple and practical, right? So instead of clicking out of my TMS to go, type it in to pull it, it's just right there for you. So it's like little things like that, at least on the brokerage side. When I look at it and think of it, those things add up, right? So if you get maybe say like 10 of those, and then you spread it across like 50 heads over a week, and you're able to run some math on it, you can see how much time is lost in just basic
Absolutely.
things. That can be, back to our buzzword, streamlined. We got a comment here from Alexander. He says, trucker side just wants it cheaper, not interested in if it's AI or if it's fancy or if it's the way into the right direction. They just want it cheaper always. And then I don't know how to describe that emoji.
A big smiley face.
A big smile.
Overexcitement.
It also kind of, I have to, when I think about it, right, it kind of makes sense for the brokers to be more tech forward as opposed to the trucking companies. Like maybe there's certain things that they can, like we were talking about, automate. So like if I have a truck and it can kind of match with orders, that makes sense, right? But there's a lot more, maybe I don't want to say intricacies, right? Because running a trucking company has a lot of challenges of its own. It's just different, right?
Of course, yeah.
So you got to think like with the brokerage, especially just being purely 3PL, working from a computer, there's a lot more ways to kind of, streamline, and like the workflows are a bit maybe more important, or they add up some of the nuances, I would say, or think. But then again, I've never run a trucking company, so I could be way off.
Yeah, I haven't either. My father has, but I haven't. He still uses a spiral notebook. So they have a TMS. He just doesn't use it.
Yes, those are some like the drivers that we work with. Some of them are just like the old school guys who are just like, I'm not accepting macro point. It's like, I'm going to be there when I say I'm going to be there. If I'm not, like, I'll let you know.
So when I was a freight broker, my grandpa was still driving. Just a few years ago. He retired at 77. I used him to win a new customer, and he would not accept my tracking. And he told me not to call him until he got there, and then he would call me. And he did. And it was amazing. And there are some of those drivers that are absolutely phenomenal. And then there are others.
Yeah, it's almost, I don't want to make like a blanket statement, right? It's just kind of unfortunate, right? That there's a lot of not even aside from the bad actors, the double brokers or the scammers, just unfortunately, I don't want to say, especially with maybe say like box trucks or hot shots where the barrier to entry might be a little bit lower. A lot of people get into it and don't take it like super seriously, right? So then you deal with a few of those guys, and then it like cultivates this environment of maybe people being like too hands-on, too needy. But it's like almost like they've been hurt, right? Like they're like, they've had some like really bad experiences. So now they're just anxious and just like, blowing up this poor guy who might like be just always on time doing a good job. He's like, why do they keep, blowing me up? It's like, well, man, like unfortunately, they don't want to be doing this, right? But they almost like feel like they need to like get ahead of anything because of some bad experiences from maybe, carrier A or B that just, I don't know, heard his cousin was making a lot with a box truck and then went out and bought one and then hooked up to truck stop, and took a load and then just dropped it off and just, I don't know, freight's crazy.
Yeah. It only takes one bad actor to ruin a whole bunch, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, Matt, do you have any more questions for Danielle?
No, I think it was fun. Time flew by, and thanks again for coming on and telling us about Revenova. If anyone's listening who's wants to learn more about Revenova, should they just reach out to you directly?
Revenova.com or email the sales team, sales@revenova.com.
Awesome. Well, simple enough. Yeah. Thanks again for coming on. It feels like we covered a lot of ground. You were definitely a great guest. I learned a lot from you. So yeah, thanks again for spending your, let's just say Thursday afternoon. I guess it's your Friday afternoon since you're off.
Yeah. So, thanks for having me, guys. I enjoyed the conversation. It's fun.
Well, enjoy your weekend.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Episode 17.
That was fun. I learned a lot. I mean, there's some things I had no idea about, and it's always like I was telling you, or I posted the other day. I think TMS sales are some of the hardest sales out in logistics, and Danielle obviously knows her stuff, so I learned a lot.
Yeah, no doubt. Alexander, thanks for tuning in. Aaron, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you guys. Ryan, you as well. Shout out Tafs. It's always interesting, especially with the TMS. It's one of those things where, I'm in a TMS all day and I'm exploring different TMSs. So it's always, I don't know, as many takes you can get or listen to people about their product to see how people are doing things. The same thing, but maybe a little bit differently, right? So Revenova sounds like a great company doing some exciting stuff. And yeah, she was a great guest. But yeah, that'll do it for this episode. Additional shout outs to our sponsors. Tafs, again, if you guys are looking for a factoring company or looking to get out of one, again, the Tafs guys, they'll send you your cell phone at 8 p.m. They're great to work with. HD Shipping Solutions, if you're looking to go the agent route, reach out to Matt. Sales-CRM, Freight-centric CRM, Blackbox is a customer. We love it. Trio Inc., they do all of our back-end stuff, all the cool graphics. The background that you're looking at right now, Blackbox is also a customer. We use a few of their people for nearshoring, and then my company Blackbox, if you're interested in freight, we're hiring for October 14th if our office is ever finished. If not, I'm going to push it back, but it should be fine.
Should be fun next week. We got a similar situation that we had this week in the TMS. We won't announce our guests right this second, but we have two people in the training area that I think a lot of people are going to want to hear from. So that should be a really interesting conversation. I think a lot of people will care about whether you own a brokerage, whether you're a sales rep. Training's a big topic, and I think we have two people coming on that are know a lot about that topic. So
yeah, it's two guests that I'm really looking forward to speaking to, and then I'm sure sales will come up, right? And sales is transferable to pretty much any industry, and then training's just good stuff, man. I'm looking forward to it. It's been a good week this week, and next week should be as well. If you guys aren't already, follow the pages. Stay tuned for some announcements. We'll announce those guests early next week, and we'll be back at it.
Sounds good. Have a good weekend, Will.
All right, you as well.
Golf a couple of rounds for me, all right?
I don't know, man. It's been raining all week. I don't know if I'm going to be golfing. I'll golf in the rain. I'm not scared.
I'll see you next week.
All right, see you.